Well, folks, Bruce here from the Coasters Club, and I've had the most amazing chance today. I saw Russell King walking past downstairs. So I went rushing out and said, Russell, can we come and talk for the Coasters Club? Now, as you all know, the Coasters Club's got 21,000 members now, and Russell was good enough to come with me, and we're going to have a chat. Russell, thank you so much for coming up. I know you feel like you've been hijacked.
Great to see you, Bruce. Great to see you.
Hey, now listen, what's your full name?
Ronald Russell King, Jr.
I love it. Whereabouts were you born?
In Greymouth
So,
in December 1940, so I'm catching up with you, I think.
oh, stop it! Oh, stop it! I know. Well, so what does that make you? 78?
78 in a few weeks, yeah.
Oh, actually, you're in good nick.
Oh, I try to keep fit, do a lot of walking,
Obviously,
work hard,
it's good living.
keep the brain active, lots of crosswords, code crackers, that's what you do.
I love it. Now, who were your mum and dad?
Well, my dad, of course, was Ron King, and mum was Pearl Dow, one of the Dow family, but well known in Hokitika. The Dows, the Havels, the Schroders, you know, they're all dried their clothes in the same wind.
I love it.
And they're great Hokitika people.
Yeah, so your dad, I've read so much about your dad, and on the coast we're deprived of sporting heroes, but we've got Brumble Mum and we've got Ron King.
Yeah, well, I don't think the coasters really appreciate what a good footballer he was. And so some years back I started to make some notes about the sort of things that he did. And you know, Bruce, if he had gone to South Africa in 1940 and he was a Monty to go, a tour that was stopped because of the war,
Yeah.
he would have been the most capped All Black of all time at that time, ahead of Napier and Brownlee.
Oh, wow.
And that's pretty remarkable.
That's big stuff.
And he played 42 matches for the All Blacks,
Yep.
and 128 first-class matches, something like that. I might be one or two out, in a career that started on the wing for the West Coast as an 18-year-old when he was still at Hokitika District High School, and finished in 1945 when he finally hung up his boots. And then, of course, he became a very good selector. And I've often likened him to people like John Hart, because he was a great fan for 15-man rugby. So that's why the coast sides in the 1950s did so well. They played as a team and not as individuals, and so he was a particularly good coach. And in that time, he never missed an All Black test. His first test was the second test in Australia in '34, and he played in every test until the outbreak of war, when there was no tests till 1947.
Yeah, look, I heard that, I'm not sure who told me, someone said you were writing a book.
Yeah, well, I've got really interested in the social aspects of rugby in the 1930s.
Right.
And as I followed what the tour did, I found that there were some amazing things. They were treated like royalty when they arrived, and so I'm just about ready to go to publish.
Oh, you're almost ready now?
Almost ready. I haven't sorted out the final name, but it probably will be Gentle Giant, which I think is, because he was a big man, of course.
Yes, he was, yeah.
And he had a great reputation as a sportsman on the field. I arrived in Dunedin one day and picked up an Otago Daily Times, and there was a writer who was much older than me, had written about him and his manner on the field, and he spoke so kindly of him. I made contact with this guy and lent him some of the info that I had. So
So the basis of the book, is it a biography of him, or is it?
No, it starts off in Beatty Street in Hokitika, where they take off for this tour.
Yeah.
Pick up the express in Greymouth. He greeted at the marae on Arahura as they passed through, and had a pie at Stillwater, and then into Christchurch, off to Wellington for a couple of days, where they indoctrinated them on the behaviour that was expected by their team manager. There was a guy called Vincent Meredith, later Sir Vincent Meredith. He was a Crown prosecutor. He's a very strict disciplinarian, and right through the tour, even the captain of the side referred to Meredith as Mr. Meredith. You know,
don't cross him.
Don't cross him. And the book exposes some of Meredith's characteristics,
right.
I suppose you would say, where I blame Meredith for the loss of their final test in England. They actually lost against Wales, and they lost against England. And it's a side that was not had a lot of record. But to get back to your question, they left on the Rangitikei in July, 5 weeks to get to Southampton. They arrived a few days early, so they had a couple of extra days in London. And then they went off to a place in Newton Abbot, where I've just had some discussions with the Newton Abbot newspaper,
right.
Where each of the teams, the 1906 and 1924 and the 1935 All Black sides, spent a week in Newton Abbot prior to their going on tour around New Zealand. And man, they worked them hard. Like on that tour, my dad played 24 of 28 matches in England, all the tests, and on test week, you'd play a game on Tuesday and you'd play your next game on Saturday. So the only person who played more games on that tour than Ron King was Mike Gilbert, who was also a West Coaster.
He was.
Yeah.
Indeed he was. I've read about him.
So, and Dad and Mike, and Dad's best friend, and a guy who was very good to me when I was at university in later years, was a guy called Brushy Mitchell. Brushy came from Southland, and they were two of a kind.
Right.
Brushy was a winger. And of course Dad started on the wing. In fact, you'd be interested that as a primary school boy, he played for the high school first 15. And the reason for that, David Stapleton, I couldn't understand why that would be. But David Stapleton, who of course knows so much about this area.
He's a great historian, isn't he?
He's marvellous. David told me that in those days it was a consolidated school.
Ah.
So I think that was interesting.
So Russell, when you were growing up, I mean, what's it like to grow up with an All Black for a father?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I went away to college, it was a disaster. I was at college for 2 or 3 days, a very homesick boy, and I got called to meet the captain, the coach of the first 15.
Right.
And I can still remember him, and he took one look at me, and I was under 5 foot, about 4'10", and 5 stone.
Yeah.
And he took one look at me and said, "You're not as big as your old man." And I guess the old man was his football hero. And so I found that pretty disastrous. And anyway, came home the May holidays. My dad always checked my spelling. My dad was very well educated.
Right.
He should have gone on and done an accounting degree, but it was depression times and those opportunities weren't available to him. So when he was picked for the All Blacks the first time, he was a gold miner, which is an interesting occupation, isn't it? And
where did the King's gold mine?
Well, his father was a very clever engineer,
right.
Alexander King,
yeah,
and he had a workshop in Beeley Street here in Hoki.
So was Ron King a Hokitika boy?
Yeah.
I thought he'd gone to school
here.
Oh,
no. Well, he'd gone to school here. He was born in Waiuta. He was the first boy born in the hospital in Waiuta.
Right.
But before he was 5, they came back to Hokitika, and he started his schooling here in Hoki.
Well,
and of course he played for the Excelsior Club.
Yes, I've read that.
Yeah.
So where did
So you were asking me about.
There's so many things I want to ask you.
Yeah, you were asking me about what it was like. I went home for the first school holidays, in those days of the May school holidays, and he looked at my report. "Where's the accounting?" And I said, "Dad, I changed to do French." And he said to me, "What did you do that for?" And I told him the story about the first 15 coach And he said, I would have done that too. You know, but he was a great dad. In the late 1940s, we had no car, and he had this bloody old push bike, and he'd tie a cushion on it with a necktie, you know.
Right.
And we'd hop on the bike, and he'd take me for a ride over the Cobden Bridge to the third shingles. And when the third shingles was, if you don't know it, was where it used to sort of flush the river out.
Right.
So when the tide was coming in, we'd swim against the tide, and when the tide was going out, we'd swim upriver.
Yeah.
He was a tough bugger, because you know he grew up the hard way. For training, you know, there was no such thing as a gym, so they'd bike to Canary, and they'd go for a run. He and his Excelsior mate at the start of the football season would take the train up to Jackson's and run back home and finish up down the back of Cockatoo somewhere. I really have got to do a little bit more research on that, but amazing. And so that's how they got their fitness in those days.
Yeah, they're very strong. Now tell me, you know, as there'll be lots of coasters interested in buying your book when it becomes available, and even perhaps sharing the odd excerpt out of it. How will we go about doing that?
Well, I've got a little bit more work to do on that.
Yeah, I understand.
But there are one or two excerpts that there's an excerpt going in the paper at Newton Keys this week. And there was last year when I was in Wales doing a bit of research for it, the South Wales News picked up an article on it, so that was interesting. Well,
it's pretty clear that if you look through some of the documentation floating around, it's pretty clear that he was very, very close to you, and clearly he's been a pretty good father. So let's go back to Russell King, because he's an interesting fella as well. Now, did you ever meet your grandparents?
Oh yes.
And did they live in Greymouth, or where were they from?
My grandmother, my granddad and grandmother on my dad's side lived in Beeley Street in Hokitika, Alexander and Daisy King, and she was a Burrows, related to the Burrows. One of the Burrows is from Howrah,
right?
Tokra Flat. They're all peas apart. My mother's dad and mum, I'm not too sure of, but they lived in Tancred Street in Hokitika.
Oh, so they're all a full Hokitika family.
They go back ages. And
yeah,
you talk about the Schroders, as I said, the Schroders and the Havels and they're all related.
Did you, when you were at school, do you remember a type of book that you read? Was there anything that, because you've had an extraordinary life so far?
Well, I was very interested in buildings, and of course went off to Auckland and did a degree in architecture. I always felt that my studies weren't complete because I thought we should have had much more practical experience, but I threw that away because I loved the contact with people and the hotel life, and that's there were hoteliers on my dad's family and my mum's family, and so I guess that's where I get my interest in this hospitality thing.
Well, because most people don't know that you were one of the first people to kick off Tourism West Coast.
Yeah, I was the original chairman.
Yeah,
and I was lucky in those days because we had it was a parochial coast. And
still is a bit.
But we were able to. The tourism sector was able to break it down, and we had great support from Westport. Give me the name of the guy who was Ellis.
He was on the council or something up there.
No. There was a good support from there, and then down from people like Ralph Fagan, who was well known in the Franz Joseph area, and we pulled the whole thing together. and it was the first
kind of centralisation of service,
yeah,
wasn't it?
It was a standard setup. We flew by the seat of our pants, as we so often do on the coast, but it was a genuine effort, and of course it eventually morphed into from what was it called, West Coast Tourism to what is now Tourism West Coast, which is a wonderful organisation.
It's been doing great, hasn't it?
Jim does a wonderful job, and his team,
Yeah.
and it's great to see the support that he gets now, because that always that recognition of the value of the visitor industry to this region is really good.
I've bumped into 3 officials of recent times. One was Air New Zealand. They all say that Tourism West Coast is punching so far above its weight. It's just fantastic. Where did you go to primary school?
In Greymane.
And what about high school?
High school at St Andrews in Christchurch.
Enjoy St Andrews?
Yes. Yes.
It was. Well, St Andrews got a fantastic reputation.
Yeah, it was a good school. But I think I missed my West Coast friends. And 5 years at school, a year working in Christchurch, and 5 years at university. I was away for 11 years. And you lose contact with the mates, so I didn't grow up go out drinking.
Yeah.
You know, do the things that youngsters should do with their mates, or need to do with their mates. Yeah. So I missed that. So that was the thing I regretted about going away to school.
Did you have a teacher anywhere throughout your life where you could turn around and say they were good, they were really good?
Undoubtedly, there's one person who had a great deal of influence on my learning habits, and that was a woman called Sheila Deal, and she was later Sheila Sequin, and she was for many years deputy principal at Greymane in the new school.
Right.
She taught me in Standard 2 and Standard 3 and in Standard 5, and I think I almost howled when in Standard 6 I couldn't. She had a 5 and 6 composite, and I wanted to be in it. She ruled with it. You know, she could flick you over the knuckles with the roller if you didn't get your spelling right. But lovely woman. And in later life, she was a great friend of Doris Hoggs, the well-known Doris Hogg. And Doris and I used to see Sheila a lot, and we developed a good friendship. You know, in those days, I was terrified of her to a degree.
Well, with the school activities, do you can you remember one of the activities or the sports that you enjoyed?
Oh well, I was into swimming, of course, and that's swimming down the third shingles. There weren't many people that could beat me over 33 and a third yards in the cold grey pools, and of course I went to St Andrews and cleaned up the swimming every year, and you know, eventually got the colours.
Yeah.
I should have got them a lot earlier, I reckon, but you know, they didn't give them away in those days like they seem to give those sorts of things away today. And I think I think as a primary school boy, I was the Nelson Marlborough West Coast Junior Boys Diving Champion.
The whole lot?
For senior men's, actually, at 12. Hey, basically because nobody else knew how to dive. But Snowy Rochford is a well-known name in the grey area, or was a pretty good tutor. And I was lucky. Actually, I went to St Andrews, and I got beaten in the diving in the first year by a guy called Len Hodge, who's a good friend of mine. Len was the New Zealand springboard diving champion, properly trained,
and he knocked you over.
And he went off to the Commonwealth Games.
Right.
They were the British Empire Games in those days, of course.
So, as a teenager, let's say you got a close friend, how would you describe Russell King? Were you outward, inward? Were you trouble? Were you?
No, I never got into trouble. Probably a bit of a nerd. I was really into my academics.
Yep.
It was important to me to get what the kids today would call good grades.
Was that driven by you or by mum and dad, or where did it come from?
No, I think it was self-driven.
Yeah.
And I would expect that people like Sheila Sequin and some of my St Andrews teachers saw a potential to cope with the academics,
yeah.
and I think a lot of them would be horrified that I eventually threw my profession away. But I use it every day because you can't. It's like if you study law, you don't necessarily need to go into the legal office. You know, you learn to think outside the square.
Yeah, and you're quite right. So you went to Auckland. You trained to become am I correct? Trained to become an architect.
Correct.
And I mean look, as a very young person, I can remember my father referring to Russell King, the architect.
Yep.
And so you were obviously very, very well known.
Well, Dad tried in 1964. My parents took on the opportunity of coming back to the coast. They had been away for 5 years, all the time I was at university. I lived in just outside Christchurch. And they came back to what was in the Albion, my grandfather's hotel, because he moved out of Hokitika up to Greymouth in 1938, bought the Albion.
Right.
And then bought the Dominion, which was where the Bank of New Zealand now is, on the corner there. And lost it.
We're just moving down that path of saying.
You were talking about academic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so Dad came back, and he tried to paint the old Albion single-handed and finished up in hospital. So right. I came home.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done my practical. You were supposed to do a year. I was bonded to the Ministry of what was then the Ministry of Works Architectural Division.
Right.
And they let me out, and I came and did a bit of work drafting for the catchment board for a period, and then hung my shingle out. And a good friend of mine, John Guerin, the May 68 earthquake, the fire station was was damaged, and we got on to doing the fire station. We did Dixon House. We got a national award for the fire station. Had a good support team around me.
Isn't it amazing? Still, yeah. It even looks modern now.
Yes, it is. It's the citation was that it was an industrial building which fitted into the domestic surroundings. And of course, it was ahead of, and then we did Dixon House, and I was when we did that. Well, I'm not young, but inexperienced.
Yes.
That the Wesley Church, the Methodist Church, who it was built under, I had to have a peer review architect to watch what I was doing.
To make sure you're doing a good job.
But it seemed to work out all right. So we had a lot of fun. It was great fun. I was doing a lot of hotel work in those days because that was my special. That's what I did my thesis on. And so we did work from Blenheim to Manapuri, and getting to Manapuri, I was with my dad on one occasion in Picton when Coast were playing Gold and Bay Motueka, I think,
right.
And we stayed in Picton, and I got a ring from the builder on the site at Manapuri, and it was the day before this is on the Saturday morning. I want you on the site on Monday. And
did you know how far it was?
I knew how far it was. and we it was on the Monday, the Buller Gorge was opening for the first time after the May 68 and Angahua earthquake. And I can still see, and they let us go through the road, and I can still see my dad taking hatfuls. The road was so rough. And actually, we flew in a Cessna from Greymouth from a guy called Nash Towrow, who was and that was a pretty interesting trip because on the way back we decided the weather wasn't very good, and we decided that we would try each of the passes as we came up, and we'd eventually get back to Greymouth somehow. And we came over into the Haast and down into the valley, and it was fogged in.
Ooh!
And now you'll love this. Nash was there in Haast on the ground for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And I hitchhiked back with John Olsen, who was the
used to sit in this building here.
Used to sit in this building here. I hitchhiked back and got the rail car from Hokitika to Greymouth. I'll never forget that. That was an amazing trip. So we had a lot of fun. You know, I was young and probably frivolous. And
So, what other buildings did you design? The ones that we'd all know.
well, RSA in Greymouth.
Yeah.
Kings, of course. Ashley was one of ours.
Did you design the Ashley?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of work for Mary Kerr at Fox. Mary
Wasn't she delightful?
She was an absolute honey.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of speaking at a funeral. She was a generation older than me. She'd been at school here at St Mary's with my mum, and yeah, she was lovely.
Yeah.
And she and Doug. Her husband Doug Kerr. Did you know Doug?
I knew Doug. Yes.
Doug at one stage was engaged to my mother, which was quite hilarious. Yeah.
That must have been a long time ago.
It was a bloody long time ago, believe you me. But so we did the Fox work, and they've all been altered now. But
I rewired the Fox Hotel for Mary.
did you?
As a young man, and she ensured that we ate properly.
Yes.
We worked hard.
She was amazing. She would get up early in the morning and go over and be in that hotel, and she'd be there late. I don't know how she did it.
You know the old kitchen, the old
Yeah.
stove that's in there. It's still there,
Is it?
and they've done it up, and it's on display, and it's just beautiful.
I stayed in Heartland Fox one night. We had the camper van down there, and it was too wet to walk home, so we booked in. And I think they've done a really good job of remodelling that property. They haven't lost its character. It's really well done.
And look, we've stayed there, and lovely place to stay. The meals are great. The funny thing is that on the last two occasions I've been down, sitting by the bar, the same guys that were there in 1977 when I walked into the place in the first time,
Yeah.
except they're a bit older.
Yeah.
Sullivan, a couple of the Sullivan boys, and
Yeah.
it's
They're a wonderful family. Those Southwestern people are special, aren't
yeah,
they?
they are.
You know,
It's hard.
one of my dad's dad was great friends with the Nolans.
Yeah.
And they used to go down to. Have you heard of Frank Bell? Frank Bell had an ice cream. Frank Bell was a very, very good boxer.
From Blackpool.
No, in Greymouth. And his boys all box, and he had a milk bar over the road from the Opera House, or what's now the St James.
Yeah.
And Robbie Nolan, Frank Bell, and Ron King used to go deer shooting together down and they'd go down to Paringa and get picked up.
Yeah.
You know, because of course in those days, I remember my dad taking me on a fishing trip to Paringa, and we stayed in a roadman's hut at McDonald's Creek.
Yes.
And that was a great experience. And I was telling somebody the other day that we went down to Fox to see Mary and Doug, and then went out to Gillespie's to see the guys mining out there.
Oh, so was it Edwards? A name like that, was it?
I can't remember the name, but they were well, I shouldn't say mining. They were black sanding.
Yeah.
Weren't they?
Yes, they were. The fellets were out there, and I'm sure it was someone Edwards.
Right.
And but Southwestern, it's just, you know, have you ever been to Quitcher Town?
To Quitcher Town.
Yeah, Quitcher Town's at the mouth of the Haast River, and it's got 18 batches there, and you go down the beach, and every batch has got a name. There's Quitcher Missus, Quitcher Bitchin, Quitcher Fartin, Quitcher, you know, and the guys that live, every one of the owners is that you can put them in a box.
Yeah.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
You know, they're just.
I know what you're talking about, because 2 years ago we went down to the Kekapotai.
Yes.
And I've got some friends who have a stand on the river. I haven't been down the last couple of years, and I think the river's changed its course, so I don't know whether the stand is what they paid for it, but they're getting the bait out of it. But you know, there's a lot of fun down there, and so many good people.
Yeah, they're fantastic. It's quite interesting, isn't it, at the moment, the changes that have taken place on the coast. And you know, you're a young 78. You can see, what do you see? What do you see in Buller and Grey and Westland? You know what?
Yeah, I don't know. I remember growing up as a young fellow, and Friday nights being half of Rananga and half of Blackball, and at 9 o'clock the buses would leave town, and there'd be Kennedy's to Bodytown to Kororo. There'd be 3 Kennedy's buses, there'd be 3 Coburn's buses going out to Denali, to Rapahoe and to Rananga. There'd be road service buses going off to Ngāhere.
Yeah.
There'd be road service going to Blaketown, would you believe? Because and the town it would buzz, and that's the difference that's gone. You've seen a lot of change. There's been some bad planning decisions, like in Greymouth, for instance. The red shed has stuffed up the downtown area because it makes it so hard for the normal business person to
survive. You can't survive, can
because you're not only dealing with price, but you're dealing with one-stop shop.
Yep.
And those 2 buildings that were built there should never have been, should have been in the downtown area, and the downtown would have thrived.
And it would have brought everybody in. It would be almost like a mall, wouldn't it?
Yeah. One of my worries about the coast is I don't think people appreciate the problems of aggregation in the river, and I see that the Grey not being dredged now. I just wonder what's happening with the waterway, because the way that land's been cleared and the way that the water flows off in the catchment so quickly. And
we haven't had a flood. Like,
no.
I can't. It must have been '88 or.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back a long time since we had a real decent flood.
Yeah, yeah. 88's interesting. If the flood wall hadn't been blocked and getting it through council,
yeah,
that would have been there in time. Henry Clark, who designed that wall, was a pretty clever catchment board engineer, and I'm sure that the district council have got equally the regional council have got equally competent people doing their things these days. But it seems to me that you've got to keep building. If the rivers are building up, you've got to keep building the walls up too. And one day. And
yes, unfortunately, that's.
I think it's more scary than an Alpine fault earthquake.
Wow.
I think that's probably more real.
Now, Russell, if I said to you today, in Hokitika, we've got a site over there that's been looked at for a 4-story hotel.
Yeah.
$25-30 million, and then we go back to King's Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
How many stories was that?
That was 6.
6.
Yeah.
How did you do it?
6 floors.
How did you get it together?
There's a guy in Greymouth called Doug Truman, who's a pretty interesting guy. And Doug and I grew up together, went to school together, and it was a Truman King development. We needed the rooms. We'd grown. We saw the opportunity that was going to happen with Haast, and there wasn't a lot of good accommodation. And in those days, we had 28-seater coaches, so if you had 16 rooms, you could accommodate 32 people, sort of thing. So we built one wing, and then another one. And then Newmans, who were the biggest operators in the country, rang one day and said they were developing a new series of tours, and there would be 100 odd departures in the thing, and they eventuated. So we had to build some more rooms, and then we got the opportunity to do the tower, and the old. It was good fun.
But I look at it in relative terms and say, okay, well, today's no different to yesterday. How will we build a 4 or a 5-story hotel?
Well,
we'd never hope.
Yeah, the difficulty with hotel construction these days is that the capital costs of meeting compliance are so high that you've got to get rates that give the investors a return. Nobody will invest unless there's $1 at the end of the day for the investors.
Yep.
And so if you want to do a major development, you've probably got to align yourself with someone who doesn't need an immediate return on the money that they're putting in.
Now, King's is just, to me, it changed everything. King's changed everything.
I did, and of course we were lucky. We had this wonderful rapport with the grooms.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it just blossomed, and we as a region, Kings was the catalyst. There's no question. I'm not that humble.
It was the catalyst.
Kings was the catalyst.
Yes.
And we got into the coach tour business, and all the operators were using. There was a lot of other good people around, like Joe Martini and Harry, and then they did Haas.
That was pretty out there too, wasn't it?
Gutsy.
That was gutsy stuff, especially Haas.
When you look at those rooms now, you think, how the hell would anybody want to stay in? Because they were reasonably jury built, but they were clean, and the tucker was probably very good, very wholesome. You know, you wouldn't get away with it these days.
And the people were good people. So these days, like you've just been in and out of the motels, Coraline, and I can tell you at Coasters Club, we have had the most amazing feedback in relation to the hospitality that you and Andrew have provided for thousands of people there.
Right.
So what is it? Do you like people?
Yeah. Look, you can have experience, and I guess it's attitude. You know, you've got to be able to look after people, and particularly those people who annoy you. They're the ones who are likely to do you the most mischief. So if they annoy you or piss you off, you give them the fingers when they're not looking. You know, because you know when you've got skin in the, it's no different than you. It's no different than you in your job. You have to have your people aboard with you. And you talk about excellence. Very proud of the Coleraine operation.
That was great.
We were able to take on a property that hadn't probably been where its potential hadn't been realised, and by a bit of friendliness and a bit of care, and some good quality toilet paper and those sorts of things that don't cost much, we were able to set a standard, which I think is pretty widespread across, because once you do that, everybody else has to measure up to compete with you. You know, you drag people with you.
Yeah.
And look, only today, I've called in on a couple of Greymouth moteliers because we got on well with all of them. I don't think we did initially because they thought we were probably the smart asses coming into town, but they soon saw that what we did reflected on them. So it's attitude that's more important than bricks and mortar. Cleanliness is of course very important, but yeah.
But it's the thing that I've found with the people who've given me feedback on your motel operation up there is actually you and Andrew. Right. That's really the feedback, and the fact that what they needed was supplied in the most friendly way.
Yes.
Whatever they happened to be.
Yeah.
You know, if they're travellers or they're
judiciary, yeah.
Because they've all got different needs, haven't they?
Yeah. Oh yes, and it's a challenge. And of course, Andrew has a great experience in hospitality. He was marketing manager for New Zealand for Malaysian Airlines for a number of years. He worked for CDL Hotels for a number of years.
Is that his background?
And he's done night audit and he's done restaurant management. So he's used to dealing with difficulties.
He's done the arts.
Accepting challenges. And he knows that when you want to swear, you go into the back room and do it.
Yeah.
But we were lucky. We've been, and as we had at Kings, we've been lucky with brilliant staff at Coleraine. You know, there are a lot of good people out there. There are a lot of good people in this world who do mundane jobs. And one of the other successes, or one of the other things that's important, is to say thank you. And we would never see one of our cleaners come in the morning without saying good morning. And we'd never see them go out the door at the end of the day without saying, hey, thanks. You know.
And look at the people the loyal people that you've wrapped around yourself. Here's Anne Chapman. You know, and look at Anne, isn't she?
Amazing woman. Anne, yeah, I'm meeting Anne in half an hour.
Oh, sorry. Look.
Yeah, and some of our Coleraine crew. You know, when I left Kings, we had 56 staff who'd been there 5 years. 28 had been there who'd been there more than 10 years. And we
goodness
had
me.
5 receptionists, and 4 of them, 3 of them will be at Montes at 5 o'clock, and 3 of them between them had 60 years of service.
Wow.
You know.
Well, Russell, in order to wrap this up, I guess this interview will be broken into 5 or 6 so that people have time to look at it. It'll be on our Coasters Club, and it'll also go as permanently onto our Coasters Club YouTube channel, and a full copy will actually be sent to the museum in Hokitika and to the museum in Greymouth, because it is a historic discussion on a man who's had an awful lot of good things that he's been responsible for on the coast, and he's from a coast family, and his dad is a coast hero.
Yeah.
And I would really love to be part of putting that message out in relation to we don't want to forget Ron King.
Right.
Or Russell King. We won't forget you because you're still around. Yeah. But Ron, I would love to be part of helping put that out there.
Bruce, I have to say that I think the Coasters Club is just the most amazing concept, and you know what a good supporter of it I've been. I still dish out your business cards.
And you've been doing it from the very first day we started.
Yes, exactly.
So thank you for that, and look, and we'll catch you later.
See you soon.